So I nearly didn't include a newcomer from the Pikmin series because it had completely slipped my mind. It wasn't until I was gathering footage that I noticed a match against Olimar and thought, wait, did I mention a Pikmin newcomer? Not to say that Pikmin and Olimar are bad or even forgettable, but I guess my mind must have clumped them with the Retro series. Pikmin is a fun series, though I'd say it's more fun when you're older because I actually found some of the puzzles and objectives to be really confusing and complicated as a kid. So much so that I ended up trading that game in too. Maybe the puzzles weren't confusing and complicated, I was just a stupid kid. In any case, I've only ever played Pikmin 1, but I'm really eager to play 2 and 3 and see how things changed, as well as the upcoming Pikmin 4. Alf from Pikmin 3 was actually an alternate costume for Olimar in Smash 4, and I was always curious why only him. Is it because Alf and Olimar are the closest in terms of anatomy? Whatever the case, I think it couldn't hurt to add the other icon from the Pikmin series, someone that I don't even like and I haven't even played Pikmin 2, Louie. My reasoning for it is because, as with a lot of other franchises on this list, there aren't many characters you can play as, or that even have major roles in the series. Taking away Louie, what we have is Brittany and Charlie, and honestly, maybe instead of a newcomer, they could give all the protagonists the Bowser Jr. treatment, where the main character slot goes to Olimar, and Louie, Alf, Brittany, and Charlie are alternate skins. If not, maybe Louie could get the Pikmin 2 and Pikmin 3 Pikmin, while Olimar gets the Pikmin 1 Pikmin. That's really the only way I see them working without having them be 100% the same character. As for a final smash, maybe instead of using the dolphin or whatever ship they'd give him, Louie summons an army of Pikmin that do massive damage to your opponents, much like they do to a Bulborb. The Villager was enough of a character for me to scratch my head, given that there were plenty of other series Nintendo could have taken fighters from. While I personally enjoyed playing Animal Crossing on the GameCube, I can understand those who don't like the series, since your time is spent literally living in a virtual life, with your objectives holding little weight to them. Inhabiting your fictional town can be fun, and the characters you meet can be quite memorable, but it's no doubt a place that you wouldn't want to spend too much time in. Who really could I include from the series? Isabelle and KK Slider were Mii costumes, but are you kidding me? Isabelle? She has an assist trophy too, and all she does is throw fruit at you so you can heal. Despite this, she's had quite a presence in other games such as Mario Kart 8 along with the Villager. KK Slider, while surprisingly iconic, only really plays the guitar, so I can't see him being very useful either. And Tom Nook, I don't want to choose him, but he kind of makes the most sense since he owns everything the Villager uses in their moveset. Unfortunately, that kind of means that Tom would have to be a straight-up clone of Villager because I can't for the life of me come up with anything unique for the character. Tom Nook's final smash could be... Jeez, I thought the Villager's final smash was an assist trophy. I can't think of anything new to give this character. I love the Punch-Out series. My dad was a big fan of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and I grew up on Super Punch-Out. So when the Wii version came out, my sister and I got on that pretty quickly. The characters are so memorable and varied, and while heavily stereotyped, they're still a lot of fun not only to watch, but to fight as well. It's really disappointing that Nintendo hasn't made a new entry since 2009, nearly a decade ago. Next Level Games developed the title and have worked on some other well-received Nintendo games, but out of all of them, I've loved Punch-Out the most. If what's holding them back is their concern over racial stereotypes, I would say that they have nothing to worry about. There have been several characters that have been of indistinct race. What makes Glass Joe and Gabby J French? Sure, Glass Joe has an accent, but other than that, I don't immediately think of anything when I see him. What about the most cartoony one of them all, King Hippo? He's an islander, but what does that mean? I don't think of any specific race when I see him. I digress. When coming up with a character for this entry, I had a lot to take into account, given that, yes, the cast of characters in Punch-Out is varied, so I had to have a good reason to choose just one character in particular. Most people would choose King Hippo since, as I said, his design is very unique, and it's easy to think of Punch-Out when you see him. But here's the thing, King Hippo has only been in 2 out of the 5 Punch-Out games, and in one of those, he's the champion of the very first circuit. Not very menacing when you think about it. As with Fire Emblem, I've narrowed it down to one of 3 possible choices, though the last one will be my ultimate pick. Bald Bull is pretty iconic, appearing in nearly every game, including Nintendo's arm wrestling arcade machine. However, while being a champion in a few of the circuits, Bald Bull is always underneath another bigger opponent, so while I think he'd be a better fit than King Hippo, I see him as being even less likely. When I was a kid, I would need my dad's help in beating Mr. Sandman, the champion of the major circuit. Even back then, I knew he wasn't the most difficult boxer, so when they made him the world champion in the Wii game, I was more than confused. Well, as it turns out, not only has Mr. Sandman been in 4 out of the 5 games, but he's been a champion in almost all of them. While I don't think Sandman is super iconic, he's arguably the most intimidating fighter in the series, not counting Nick Bruiser. I was actually going to go with Sandman for my pick, but then I found out Super Macho Man has actually been above Sandman in most of the games. Let's look at how they compare. Mr. Sandman was a champion in the original Arcade Punch-Out, the only game Super Macho Man was absent from. Super Macho Man in turn was a champion of the arcade Super Punch-Out, the only game that Mr. Sandman was absent from. In Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Mr. Sandman was ranked number 1 in the world circuit, where Super Macho Man was champion, so literally one rank apart from each other. In the Wii Punch-Out, their roles were reversed, where Super Macho Man was ranked number 1 in the world circuit and Mr. Sandman was the champion. We'll have to consult Super Punch-Out on Super Nintendo, where neither of them is the ultimate champion. They're both champions of different circuits though, with Sandman being champion of the major circuit and Macho Man of the world circuit. As it turns out, Super Macho Man has, on average, actually been ranked higher than Mr. Sandman, so perhaps he should have that spot. For a final smash, he could use a signature Super Macho clothesline attack, only working if activated right next to an opponent. When Xenoblade Chronicles came out, I don't think many people were aware, considering that it came out near the end of the Wii's life cycle. I first heard of Shulk through the Smash 4 leaks, and I honestly thought he was a Final Fantasy character of some sort. About Shulk, I always thought Shulk was a third-party character. When I heard everyone talk about how they wanted him in Smash Brothers, I was like, oh, Shulk from Xenoblade, Shulk from Xenoblade, Shulk from Xenoblade. I was like, okay, guys, stop. We really don't need, like, the whole Final Fantasy thing. Being a fairly recent title and one not very talked about, it took many by surprise. Even more in retrospect, given that Xenoblade Chronicles X came out the very next year. But as with most properties, Shulk's inclusion in Smash raised awareness of the series developed by Monolith Soft. Actually, looking back, it makes a lot of sense. Monolith was owned by Namco before being owned by Nintendo, and Smash 4 was a collaboration between Nintendo and Namco Bandai. As a result, the series garnered a lot of popularity, to the point that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was a highly anticipated game. I fell in love with the series after having a rough time with both Xenoblade 1 and 2 due to my distaste for cooldown periods in games, and while I own X, I've yet to experience it. While I would love to have Nia as a playable character, it only makes sense to include the main characters of Xenoblade 2, with perhaps her alter ego Mythra as an alternate costume. Hey, maybe Pyra could have a color scheme based on Mythra, and vice versa. Much like Shulk, Rex and Pyra would be able to use their battle arts in combat, maybe making it more element-based than Shulk with his Monado arts. For a final smash, and maybe to avoid any potential spoilers, Rex and Pyra could perform a chain attack with Nia and Dromark and Tora and Poppy. Look, any excuse I can have to have Nia in the game is good for me.